The great hall of the palace was silent. The floor, made of polished stone, reflected the high beams of light that shone from crystal lamps. Tall banners of the Queen's symbol hung on the walls, but they no longer looked proud. They seemed heavy, as if weighed down by fear. The alien Queen sat on her throne, her face calm but her eyes troubled. For many years she had been surrounded by her strongest protectors. They were warriors trained since childhood, armed with weapons no one dared to challenge. They had guarded her through every danger, and her people had felt safe under their watch. But now those protectors were gone. They had vanished without warning, leaving her throne room empty. Servants whispered in corners, afraid to speak too loudly. Some believed the protectors had been betrayed. Others thought they had been lured away by the enemy. No one knew the truth, and the uncertainty spread fear like a shadow across the palace. The Queen looked at the wide doors of her hall. She expected to see her guards march in, their armor shining. Instead, she saw only emptiness. The hall echoed with the sound of her own thoughts. For the first time in her reign, she felt alone. Her advisors rushed to her side. They begged her to call for help from other star kingdoms. They suggested she leave the palace and hide in a safe world until the danger passed. But the Queen was proud. She had sworn to protect her people, not abandon them. Yet she also knew her kingdom was in danger, for the moment her enemies learned her throne was unguarded, they would strike. At the edge of the hall stood a single human. He was not a warrior or a nobleman. He wore plain clothes marked with the dust of machines. His name was Aaron, an engineer who had come from Earth many seasons ago. He had been invited to the kingdom to share his skill with machines, not to stand in royal chambers. Yet here he was, looking at the Queen with calm eyes. When the advisors finished their fearful words, the Queen turned to him. "Why do you stand so firm when others tremble?" she asked. Aaron bowed slightly but did not look away. "Because fear does not build anything," he said in a quiet voice. "I am an engineer. I do not know battle the way your guards did. But I know how to build, and I know how to protect with what I build." The advisors laughed bitterly. "What can one human do," they said, "when even our finest protectors have disappeared? The throne needs soldiers, not builders." But the Queen silenced them with a raised hand. She studied Aaron carefully. She saw no armor, no weapon, no sign of strength as her warriors once showed. Yet there was something steady in his eyes. It was not pride or arrogance. It was resolve, a quiet promise that he would not run away. "Do you claim you can protect me?" the Queen asked. "I claim I will stand firm before you," Aaron answered. "I do not run. I do not abandon. I can use my hands and my mind. Give me the chance, and I will not let harm reach you." The hall grew quiet. Even the advisors who had mocked him fell silent. There was weight in his words. The Queen leaned back on her throne. Her crown glimmered in the light, but her thoughts were far heavier than gold. She had led armies and signed treaties, but never had she seen such certainty from someone who had no sword. Finally, she spoke. "Very well, Aaron. If my protectors cannot stand here, then you will. From this moment, you are my shield." The advisors gasped, but the Queen ignored them. Aaron bowed his head. He did not boast or smile. He simply said, "Then I will begin." That night the palace was restless. Servants whispered about the strange turn of fate. How could a human engineer replace the strongest guards in the kingdom? Some laughed at the idea. Others worried it was a sign of doom. Yet some hearts, weary of fear, felt a spark of hope. For even in their doubt, they remembered the way Aaron had spoken. His voice had not wavered. Aaron walked through the empty guard halls. He saw the places where weapons had once been stored, the barracks where soldiers had trained. He felt the silence pressing against him, but he did not let it break his spirit. He thought of machines he had built before, of tools that turned weakness into strength. He thought of how humans had always survived, not because they were the strongest, but because they never stopped creating new ways to endure. He stood on the balcony that overlooked the capital city. Lights from thousands of homes shone below, and in those lights he saw lives that depended on the Queen. He whispered to himself, "I will protect her, and I will protect them." Far above the city, in the cold dark of space, hidden eyes watched. Enemy ships circled beyond sight, waiting for the right moment. They had learned that the Queen was unguarded, and they sharpened their plans. To them, it was only a matter of time before her kingdom fell. But in the silent halls of the palace, a single human had chosen to stand firm. Though he had no sword, he carried something far more dangerous to any enemy who underestimated him. He carried human resolve. The Queen, sitting alone in her chamber, thought again of his words. She touched the arm of her throne and whispered, "May he be true." For in her heart, she knew the future of her kingdom might now rest not on soldiers or fleets, but on the courage of a lone human engineer who refused to bow to fear. And so, as the night stretched over the city, the throne room no longer felt entirely empty. Where the protectors had once stood, Aaron now remained. He was only one, but he stood firm. The next morning came with heavy clouds over the capital. The city below the palace woke with unease, for rumors had spread during the night. People whispered in markets and along the streets that the Queen's guards had vanished. Some believed they had deserted, others feared they had been destroyed. Fear traveled quickly from home to home, and even children asked why the palace gates were so quiet. Inside the throne room, the Queen sat with her advisors once again. Their voices filled the air with panic and doubt. "We must send messengers to distant kingdoms," one said. "We must ask for soldiers to come and defend us." "We should move the Queen to a hidden world," another suggested. "If enemies arrive, the throne must be safe." Others argued about old treaties, whether allies would even care if the Queen called for aid. The hall became a storm of fearful voices. Aaron stood at the center of the chamber, listening to them all. He was calm, but his mind was already working. He had studied machines since childhood. He had seen broken engines rise to life under his hands. He believed the same could be done for this kingdom if the Queen would trust him. At last, the Queen raised her hand. The voices fell silent. Her eyes turned to Aaron. "You stood firm yesterday," she said. "But words are easy. Tell me, human, what can you truly do for me now? What promise can you give my people when even trained soldiers could not remain?" Aaron stepped forward. His voice was steady. "I cannot promise to fight as your guards did. I cannot stand with sword and shield. But I can promise this. I will not leave you. I will not allow fear to break me. I will use my hands, my mind, and everything I know to make the city strong again. Machines can fight when men cannot. Walls can hold when armies fall. Let me work, and I will build what you need to stand." The advisors scoffed. "Machines? Scrap and wires? Do you think toys can replace warriors?" But the Queen did not laugh. She studied Aaron carefully, searching his face for weakness. Yet all she found was calm certainty. "Why would you risk yourself for me?" she asked softly. Because you trusted me when I came here, Aaron answered. You welcomed a human into your kingdom. You gave me a place among your people. I cannot walk away now that you are in need. My promise is not only to you, but to every light that shines in the city below. I will protect them, for they too trusted me. The queen leaned back on her throne. Her crown glimmered under the crystal lights, but her thoughts were far heavier. She saw doubt in her advisors, but in her heart she felt a spark of hope. At last she spoke. Then rise, Aaron the engineer. From this day, I will give you the freedom to work as you see fit. You may build, plan, or command as your mind guides you. You shall answer only to me. If your promise holds true, you may save this throne. If it fails, then we shall both fall together. Aaron bowed his head. I will not fail you, my queen. The advisors protested, but the queen silenced them with one glance. Her word was law. The human would be her protector now, not with sword or shield, but with the power of creation. That very day, Aaron began his work. He walked through the palace workshops, where tools and half-finished projects lay forgotten. He inspected the old defense towers that had not been powered in years. He studied the city gates and the walls that surrounded the capital. Everywhere he looked, he saw weakness, but he also saw opportunity. The workers and servants followed him, watching in silence. They had expected him to panic or fail, but instead he moved with purpose. He asked for wires, coils, engines, and spare parts. He carried old machines with his own hands, sweating under their weight. Slowly, others began to help him. By evening, the sound of work filled the palace halls. Sparks flew from forges, gears turned once again, and machines came alive under his touch. Aaron explained to the workers how to build small drones, fast and sharp like birds. He showed them how to power towers with simple crystals that could fire beams of light. His voice was calm and patient, teaching with a steady rhythm. The people who had doubted him in the morning now looked at him with new eyes. They saw not just a human, but a leader who worked beside them. He did not command from above but joined them in every task. That night, when the queen walked through the halls, she stopped in wonder. Where silence had ruled, now there was movement and life. She saw drones lifting into the air for the first time. She saw light towers glowing, their beams cutting the dark sky. She heard the voices of her people working with hope instead of fear. She approached Aaron, who was tightening bolts on a heavy frame. His hands were blackened with oil, his shirt torn, but his eyes still shone with steady light. You have done much in only one day, the queen said. Aaron wiped his hands and bowed. This is only the beginning. What we build tonight will keep us standing tomorrow. But we must be ready. Enemies are watching. They will come soon. The queen's face grew hard, but her voice carried strength. Then let them come. They will not find me weak. And they will not find you alone. For the first time since her protectors vanished, she felt no fear. She had given her trust to a human, and he had answered with action, not empty words. Above the city, clouds broke, and moonlight spilled across the capital. The towers glowed brighter under the silver light. People in their homes looked up and saw the sky filled with new defenses. Hope spread across the streets like fire, and children slept more peacefully that night. But far away in the cold dark of space, enemy ships still circled. Their commanders studied the city and saw lights they had not expected. They frowned, wondering who had given the queen strength once more. They planned to strike soon, but they did not yet know that a single human engineer now stood as her shield. Inside the palace, Aaron stood on the balcony again, gazing at the city he had promised to protect. His heart was steady, his mind sharp. He whispered to himself, "I will not fail. Humanity has always stood firm when others broke. And I will stand firm now." The queen watched him from the shadows of the hall. She heard his words and felt a strange warmth in her heart. For the first time, she believed that perhaps her throne was not as fragile as she feared. And so, in the silence of the night, a new bond was sealed. Not of warriors and kings, but of a queen and a human engineer who had given his promise, a promise he intended to keep with all his strength. The next few days passed with restless energy. In the palace, Aaron worked without pause. He repaired ancient defense towers, strengthened gates, and built new drones that hovered above the walls like watchful birds. The people of the capital had once feared that no one would stand for them, but now they watched in awe as the human engineer worked with a tireless spirit. Children pointed at the sky when they saw the drones move in smooth circles. Merchants whispered to each other that perhaps the Queen's city was not as weak as they feared. Even the doubtful advisors began to quiet their voices, for they could not deny what their eyes showed them. The Queen herself visited the workshops each night. She saw sparks fly, metal glow, and machines rise to life. She no longer felt alone on her throne, for a shield of human design was beginning to grow around her. But while the capital gained hope, the shadows of space grew heavier. Beyond the starline, fleets of enemy ships moved in silence. Their commanders had been waiting for the right moment to strike. When the Queen's protectors had vanished, they believed her throne would soon fall. Yet their spies now brought troubling news. Strange machines circled the skies above the capital. Towers glowed with light, and the people no longer trembled with fear. The enemy commanders gathered in dark chambers, whispering of the Queen's sudden strength. They could not understand how a kingdom left unguarded now stood firm. Some suggested that hidden soldiers had returned. Others thought she had gained secret allies. In truth, they did not yet know that a single human had changed everything. One evening, as Aaron adjusted the coils of a tall defense tower, a soldier of the Queen ran to him in haste. "Sir," the soldier said, "our scouts have seen movement beyond the stars. The enemy has begun to send raiders. They fly small and fast, perhaps to test our walls." Aaron stood and wiped the oil from his hands. He looked at the sky, where the sun was sinking into the horizon. "Then tonight we see if our work is strong enough." The soldier's eyes were uneasy. "You have built many things, but can they truly stop what is coming?" "They will hold," Aaron said firmly. "Because they must hold." As night fell, the city grew quiet. Families stayed in their homes, windows shut tight. On the palace walls, workers and guards watched the skies nervously. Drones hovered above, glowing faintly in the darkness. The towers hummed with energy, waiting for the command to strike. The Queen stood on her balcony, looking out over her capital. Her heart was steady, though the shadow of danger pressed against her chest. She turned to Aaron, who stood beside her. "They are coming," she said. "Yes," Aaron replied. "And they will find the city ready." The first raiders appeared in the sky like black arrows cutting through the night. Their ships were small and sharp, built for speed and attack. They rushed toward the palace with flashing lights, expecting no resistance. But before they could reach the city walls, Aaron's machines came alive. The drones darted forward, their wings glowing with energy. They swarmed the raiders, striking their engines with precise bursts of light. Sparks filled the sky as the raiders twisted and turned in confusion. From the palace towers, beams of pure light shot upward. They caught the raiders in their path, blinding pilots and tearing holes in their armor. The city below watched as the night sky turned into a battlefield of fire and light. The Queen's people gasped in wonder. They had expected to see their walls fall, but instead they saw their enemies flee in panic. The raiders tried to press forward, but the drones struck again and again, forcing them back. Aaron stood at the controls of the defense grid, his hands moving swiftly across levers and switches. His calm voice guided the workers around him. Tower 3, adjust your angle. Drone Unit 2, focus on the right flank. Keep the pressure steady. Do not let them break through. The workers obeyed his every word. Though they were not soldiers, his calmness gave them courage. Within an hour, the raiders had no choice but to retreat. Their ships, broken and smoking, turned away from the city and vanished into the dark sky. Not a single enemy reached the palace walls. The people of the capital cheered from their rooftops. They shouted the Queen's name and praised the strange human who had turned their fear into strength. On the balcony, the Queen turned to Aaron. Her eyes glimmered with relief and pride. You have done what even my protectors could not. You have stood against the first wave and sent them back. Aaron shook his head. This was only their test. They wished to see if you were weak. Now they know you are not, but they will come again, and in greater numbers. We must be ready. The Queen nodded, her voice steady. Then we shall be ready. My people will not bow. You have shown them what it means to fight with more than swords. You have given them hope. That night, the city did not sleep. Fires burned bright in the workshops, and workers labored with new strength. Families spoke of the battle with pride, and children dreamed not of defeat but of victory. The story of the human engineer spread from street to street. They began to call him the Protector, even though he wore no armor and carried no weapon. Yet in the dark void of space, the enemy fleets gathered once more. The commanders were furious at their failed raid. They studied the reports of drones and towers and asked themselves how such defenses had risen so quickly. They swore they would crush the Queen's capital with a greater storm. And so, while the city below celebrated, a new danger was already forming beyond the stars. Aaron knew it, the Queen knew it, and soon all her people would learn that the true battle was yet to come. But for this night, the throne was safe. The Queen was no longer alone, and the halls of her palace no longer echoed with silence. A human stood firm before her, and that was enough to turn fear into courage. The victory against the raiders filled the city with hope, but Aaron knew it was only the beginning. He spent every waking hour strengthening defenses, adding new layers to the drones, and adjusting the energy towers. Workers followed him faithfully, eager to learn his designs. Even those who had once doubted him now offered their hands to help. The Queen watched with growing pride. For the first time since her protectors vanished, she felt her throne was not as fragile as she feared. Yet she also sensed a storm rising. Enemies who had failed once would not accept defeat quietly. One evening, as the last rays of sunlight touched the palace walls, a messenger rushed into the throne room. His breath came fast, and his voice shook with urgency. My Queen, enemy ships gather at the outer rim. They are larger this time, more than before. They prepare to strike again. The hall grew tense. Advisors whispered of surrender, fearing a battle that might bring ruin. But Aaron stepped forward calmly. They will come in greater strength, as I expected, he said. This time they will test not only the sky but also our gates. They believe machines alone cannot hold the ground. Tonight we show them they are wrong. The queen nodded, her voice strong. Then we will stand. If they come with fire, they will meet fire. My people will not run. As night fell, the enemy revealed themselves. From beyond the clouds, their ships descended in dark formation. Larger and heavier than the raiders, they moved like a wall of iron. Lights flashed from their hulls, and the sky trembled with their engines. The people of the capital gathered on rooftops and streets, watching in silence. Fear touched their hearts, but so did the memory of Aaron's machines driving the first raiders away. On the palace balcony, Aaron stood beside the queen. His eyes were steady, scanning the horizon. The drones hovered above the walls, their wings glowing. Towers hummed with power, ready to strike. Workers manned the control stations, waiting for his word. The first wave of enemy fire lit the night. Red beams shot down toward the walls, shaking the ground with thunder. But Aaron's towers answered at once. Bright streams of light cut through the sky, meeting the enemy fire with fierce brilliance. Explosions roared above, and the people gasped as the heavens turned into a storm of flame. Then the enemy ships released smaller crafts, dark and swift. They dove toward the gates, their weapons aimed to shatter the entrance to the capital. Aaron's voice rang clear across the command stations. Drones, intercept them. Towers, hold steady. Do not let them reach the gates. The drones swarmed like a living shield. They flew in tight circles, striking the smaller crafts with sharp blasts. Sparks rained across the city sky. Several enemy ships fell in flames, crashing beyond the walls. But the enemy pressed harder. From the larger ships, heavy machines dropped to the ground. Their metal legs thundered as they marched toward the gates, firing bolts of energy. The people cried out in fear, for never before had they seen such machines. Aaron rushed to the ground defenses he had prepared. He had hidden traps in the soil, lines of energy coiled beneath the earth. With one command, the ground shook. Bursts of light exploded from the hidden traps, striking the enemy machines as they marched. Several fell at once, their legs broken, their bodies smoking. Cheers rose from the walls. The people saw that their city was not defenseless, that every stone and gate now held strength. The queen stood proudly on the balcony, her voice ringing across the capital. Stand firm, my people. This is our home. We will not bow to fear. Her words carried like fire through the hearts of all who heard them. Workers, guards, and even common citizens found courage they did not know they had. The battle raged on. The enemy ships circled, firing again and again. Aaron ran from tower to tower, adjusting controls, repairing broken parts, guiding the defenders with clear commands. He did not stop, even when smoke stung his eyes and fire burned around him. At one point, a tower near the east gate flickered, its beam failing. Enemy crafts moved quickly toward the gap. Aaron sprinted across the courtyard, climbing the tower himself. With his bare hands, he tore open the coil chamber and reconnected wires while sparks bit into his skin. The tower roared back to life, blasting the approaching crafts before they could break through. From below, the people cheered. They shouted his name with gratitude, calling him their protector. Aaron only gave a short nod and moved on, for the battle was not yet won. Finally, after hours of fierce struggle, the enemy ships began to retreat. Their losses were heavy, their smaller crafts broken, their ground machines destroyed. The sky grew quiet as their fleet pulled back into the dark horizon. A deep silence followed, broken only by the sound of crackling fires and the cheers of the people. Families poured into the streets, lifting their voices in triumph. Children waved to the drones as if they were heroes themselves. The capital had held. The queen descended from her balcony and walked among her people. Her crown glowed in the firelight as she lifted her hand. "This day belongs not to fear, but to courage," she said. "When others thought us weak, we stood strong. And when we feared defeat, we found hope in the hands of a human who would not yield." Her words carried across the square, and the people shouted in reply. They cheered not only for their queen but also for Aaron, who had turned their city into a fortress. Aaron stood at the edge of the crowd, weary but unbroken. His clothes were torn, his hands marked by smoke and oil, but his spirit was unshaken. He knew the battle they had faced was only the first trial. Greater storms would come, fleets larger and more dangerous than this one. But he also knew that the queen and her people would no longer face them with despair. For the first time, the kingdom had seen that strength did not always come from soldiers or armies. It could come from knowledge, from creation, from the steady resolve of one who refused to leave. That night, the capital shone with light. Towers glimmered, drones hovered in calm patterns, and the people celebrated with laughter instead of fear. Yet Aaron remained thoughtful as he looked to the stars. Somewhere beyond the darkness, enemies still prepared. The first trial was over, but the war for the queen's throne had only just begun. And still, he stood firm. The smoke of battle still lingered over the city. Towers glowed faintly, and drones circled the sky like silent guardians. The people cheered for victory, but Aaron knew the danger was far from over. The raiders had been only the beginning. The real test was yet to come. Inside the palace, the queen sat with her council. The advisors, who had once mocked Aaron's efforts, now spoke with cautious respect. Yet fear had not left their hearts. "They will return," one said. "The fleet we faced tonight was strong, but the true force of our enemy is far greater. We should still send messages for help." Another added, "We cannot win a war of endless waves. Perhaps it is wiser to surrender before they bring ruin upon us all." The queen listened quietly. Their words pressed on her like heavy chains. She had always relied on her guards, on soldiers trained to fight in her name. Without them, she had felt powerless. But now she looked at Aaron, standing calmly near the edge of the hall, and she felt something stir inside her. "Enough," the queen said, rising from her throne. Her voice carried through the chamber, silencing the advisors. "If my people look to me and see only fear, then they will break. If I tell them we must bow, then they will bow. But if I stand, if I raise my voice, then they too will rise. I will not hide. I will not surrender. This is my home, and I will defend it with my people." Her words struck the advisors silent. They bowed their heads, for they saw her resolve. Later, she walked with Aaron along the palace walls. The night was quiet except for the hum of machines. Fires burned in the distance where enemy ships had fallen. Aaron inspected the drones, making small adjustments to their wings. "You are certain they will return?" the queen said. "Yes," Aaron answered. "Their pride will not allow them to accept defeat. They will gather their full strength and strike again. When they come, it will not be only ships in the sky or machines on the ground. They will bring everything they have." The queen was silent for a moment. Then she turned to him. "Tell me honestly, Aaron. Can we stand against them?" Aaron looked at the city below, the lights of thousands of homes glowing faintly in the dark. "Alone, no. But together, yes. Your people trust you. They will fight if you lead them. They will give their hands, their strength, their courage. And with their help, I can turn this city into more than a fortress. I can make it unbreakable. The queen studied him carefully. You speak as if you believe my people are stronger than they know. I do, Aaron said simply. Humans have survived because we never stood alone. We build together, we endure together. Your people can do the same. They need more than machines to protect them. They need you. If you rise, they will rise with you. For a long moment, the queen gazed at the stars. She thought of the battles she had fought with words and treaties, the armies she had once commanded through her protectors. And she realized that this was different. Now her strength must not come from others, but from herself. The next morning, the queen gathered her people in the great square before the palace. Citizens filled the streets, waiting with anxious faces. They expected warnings or orders to hide. Instead, they saw their queen step forward, her crown gleaming under the sun, her voice clear and strong. My people, she called, our enemies believe we are weak. They believe that because our protectors are gone, we will fall. But they are wrong. We are not weak. We are many, and we are united. We will fight not only with weapons but with our hearts, our hands, and our courage. Together, we will protect the city, our home, our future. The people listened, their fear slowly melting into pride. The queen lifted her hand toward Aaron, who stood at her side. This human, an engineer, has shown us that strength does not always wear armor. He has stood when others fled. He has built shields where none existed. And now, I too will stand. Not hidden behind walls, not waiting in fear, but beside him and beside all of you. From this day forward, we fight as one. A great cheer rose from the crowd. The sound filled the air, echoing across the city. Families who had been ready to flee now shouted with courage. Workers who had labored through the night lifted their tools with pride. Children raised their hands, believing their queen and their new protector could not be defeated. Aaron watched the scene with quiet satisfaction. This was what he had hoped for. Machines could hold walls, but only unity could hold a kingdom. The queen had given her people that unity. In the days that followed, the city became alive with purpose. Citizens volunteered to help build defenses. Farmers brought wood and stone, merchants offered supplies, and smiths forged metal parts for drones and towers. The queen herself walked among them, speaking words of encouragement, working with her hands when needed. Her presence inspired everyone. Aaron guided them all. He taught groups of workers how to maintain drones, showed smiths how to build coils, and instructed children on how to signal alarms if enemies approached. Every person had a task, and every task mattered. One evening, as the sun set red across the horizon, the queen stood beside Aaron once again. The city below was no longer silent or afraid. It was alive with the sounds of creation. You were right, the queen said softly. They only needed me to stand with them. Now they will not break, even if the enemy comes with all their force. Aaron gave a small nod. Hope is the strongest shield. With it, even the weakest walls can stand. But as he looked at the sky, his face grew serious. He could feel the storm drawing closer. The enemy would not delay much longer. The true battle was near. Far beyond the horizon, hidden in the dark void of space, the enemy commanders prepared. They had seen their raiders destroyed and their machines broken. Their anger burned, and their pride demanded revenge. This time, they would send their full fleet. This time, they would crush the queen's throne and show no mercy. Back in the capital, the people did not tremble as they once had. They looked to their queen and to the human protector who had given them strength. Whatever came, they were ready to face it. And so the stage was set. The queen had found her voice, her people had found their courage, and Aaron had found allies in every hand that lifted to help him. The storm was coming, but now the kingdom stood together. The days of waiting ended when the night sky burned with fire. A vast fleet of enemy ships appeared above the city. Their dark forms blotted out the stars, their weapons glowing red like the eyes of monsters. The people looked up and felt the ground tremble. This was not a raid. This was war. Alarms rang across the city. Towers lit up with energy, drones swarmed the skies, and soldiers took their positions along the walls. The queen stood tall on the balcony of her palace, her cloak flowing in the wind, her crown shining like a beacon. At her side was Aaron, steady and calm, though his eyes never left the enemy fleet. "They have come with everything they have," the queen said quietly. Aaron nodded. "And we will answer with everything we are." The first strike came like a storm. Fire rained down from the fleet as energy blasts hammered the city shields. The protective dome shimmered and shook, but the coils that Aaron had built held firm. Bolts of blue light rippled across the barrier, scattering the enemy fire. The people watching below gasped, for the shield did not fall as they had once feared. "Shields holding," shouted one of the workers in the command hall. Aaron gave the order. "Now, send the drones." Thousands of drones launched into the sky, their wings cutting through the night air. They weaved between enemy fire, striking back with precise beams. Small enemy crafts burst into flames, falling like meteors. The sky became a dance of light, blue and red clashing in endless arcs. On the walls, soldiers cheered as the first enemy ships were destroyed. The queen raised her hand, calling out to her people. "Stand strong," she cried. "This is our city. This is our home. Fight for it with all your strength." The people shouted in return, their voices rolling across the city like thunder. The battle raged hour after hour. The enemy pressed hard, sending wave after wave of ships and machines. Giant walkers descended from the fleet, their metal legs crushing the ground as they advanced toward the gates. The queen's soldiers fired arrows of energy, and Aaron directed the towers to strike the walkers' joints. One after another, the machines toppled, their bodies crashing into the streets. But the enemy was not finished. They unleashed their greatest weapon, a massive warship larger than the palace itself. Its cannons glowed bright, and when it fired, the city shield screamed with strain. Cracks began to form in the barrier. Aaron rushed to the control station, hands flying over the panels. "Hold, just hold a little longer," he whispered. Sweat covered his brow, but his eyes stayed sharp. The queen moved beside him. "If the shield falls," she asked. "Then we fight with the walls, with the streets, with our hands if we must," Aaron answered. "But I will not let it fall while I still breathe." The enemy ship fired again, and the shield flared dangerously. Parts of it flickered, leaving gaps where fire rained down on the city. Towers crumbled, and flames spread across the marketplace. Citizens rushed to help each other, carrying water, pulling the wounded to safety. Even children shouted warnings when they saw enemy crafts breaking through. The queen left the balcony and went down into the streets. Her guards begged her to stay inside, but she shook her head. She would not hide. She walked among her people, lifting debris with her own hands, calming the frightened, and standing where the fire fell. Her presence gave them strength beyond measure. "Your queen fights with you," she called. "Do not break. Do not give in. Together we stand." The people cheered, their fear turned into fire in their hearts. Workers who had never held a weapon picked up tools and fought back against raiders in the streets. Families defended their homes with courage no enemy could crush. Aaron worked like a man possessed. He repaired broken coils, redirected energy, and pushed the drones into tighter formations. His voice rang over the city's command channels, guiding every fighter. "Aim for the engines. Strike the weak joints. Shield the civilians first." His calm commands gave order to the chaos. Then came the moment of greatest danger. The massive warship gathered energy for one final strike. Its cannons glowed brighter than the sun, and the people felt the air itself tremble. If that blast landed, the shield would shatter and the city would fall. Aaron's eyes widened. "We cannot take that hit." The queen looked at him, her voice steady. "What can we do?" Aaron's hands moved quickly over the panels. "There is one chance. If I reroute all the energy from the city's core into the shield, it may hold. But it will burn out everything else. We will be left in the dark, defenseless after this strike." The queen did not hesitate. "Do it. Better we live in darkness than fall to chains." Aaron pulled the levers, sparks flying around him. The coils glowed white-hot, and the shield blazed brighter than ever before. When the enemy warship fired, the blast struck the dome like a hammer against steel. The whole city shook. Windows shattered, towers cracked, and people fell to their knees. But the shield did not fall. The energy burned, the coils screamed, and then the warship's cannon overloaded. With a thunderous roar, the giant ship tore apart in the sky, exploding into 1,000 burning fragments. The people rose with a cry of triumph. The enemy fleet wavered, their command ship destroyed. The drones pressed the attack, and the soldiers struck harder. One by one, the enemy ships fell, until the sky cleared of their shadow. Silence followed, broken only by the cheers of the people. The enemy was gone, defeated. The city stood. Aaron collapsed against the console, his hands burned but his spirit unbroken. The queen rushed to him, helping him to his feet. "You saved us," she said softly. He shook his head. "We saved ourselves. Together." The queen looked out at her people, who now shouted her name with pride, their voices carrying across the land. For the first time in many years, she felt not fear but hope. The battle was won. But deep inside, she knew this was not the end. The enemy would remember this defeat. They would return one day with new weapons, new fury. Yet for now, the queen stood tall beside the human engineer who had refused to bow. And in the hearts of her people, a fire had been lit that no enemy could ever truly put out. The sky above the capital was clear for the first time in many days. Smoke from the battle had vanished, and the stars shone softly over the city. The streets, once filled with chaos and fear, were now alive with relief and joy. Families embraced, neighbors shared stories of courage, and children ran through the squares, laughing freely. The queen walked among her people, her crown still gleaming but her heart lighter than it had been in years. She had seen her kingdom tested, and she had seen it survive. She had seen her people fight not because they were forced, but because they chose to protect what they loved. At her side stood Aaron. The human engineer, tired but unbowed, had worked tirelessly through the battle. His clothes were torn, his hands blackened with soot, yet his eyes held the same calm determination as when he first stood before the throne. "Look at them," the queen said softly, watching the crowd celebrate. "They are alive because of courage, not just machines." Aaron nodded. "And because of leadership. People follow those who inspire them. Tonight, they followed you." The queen smiled. "And you inspired them as well. Without your skill and your steadiness, we would not have survived." The people began to gather in the square near the palace. They carried banners, lanterns, and symbols of victory. They cheered for their queen, for their city, and for the strange human who had stood as their protector. One of the city's elders approached the queen. "Your Majesty, we owe everything to this human," he said, bowing respectfully. "He did what none of our warriors could do. He held the city when we feared it would fall." The queen turned to Aaron. "It is true. You have not only built machines to protect us, but you have also given us hope when there was none. Today, you are more than an engineer. You are the protector of the throne." The people cheered loudly, clapping their hands and shouting Aaron's name. Children waved small flags with his image, and even the workers who had labored all through the battle came forward to salute him. Aaron bowed his head in quiet gratitude. "I only did what anyone would do to protect those who trusted them. The strength was in the people, in their courage. I only helped it rise." The queen placed her hand on his shoulder. "That courage will never fade because it now carries your mark. You showed humanity at its finest. Today, every eye that watched saw what one human can do when they refuse to bow to fear." The city celebrated deep into the night. Fires were lit across rooftops and in the squares. Music played as families danced, and the people shared food and stories. Soldiers, workers, and citizens alike mingled freely, no longer divided by fear or rank. The streets were alive, full of gratitude and relief. But even in the celebration, the queen and Aaron remained aware that vigilance must continue. The enemy had been defeated, yet the war was not over. Plans had to be made, defenses maintained, and lessons learned. Aaron moved among the towers and drones, inspecting each one, making small adjustments, and teaching the next generation of engineers how to care for the machines that had saved them. "You have done more than I could have imagined," the queen said as she watched him work. "You have not only built defenses, but you have built trust and courage. The people will remember this forever." Aaron glanced up. "It is not the machines or the walls they will remember. They will remember that someone refused to leave when danger came. That is the strength they carry now." The queen nodded. "Then let us ensure that this strength grows, not just for today, but for all the days to come. Your presence here will be remembered as a turning point for our kingdom." In the following weeks, the city slowly repaired itself. Buildings damaged in the battle were rebuilt, streets cleared of debris, and defenses strengthened even further. Aaron guided the people in every project. His knowledge turned old workshops into advanced centers of engineering. Children learned from him, taking their first steps in the skills that would one day protect the kingdom. The queen worked beside her citizens, encouraging them, listening to their concerns, and ensuring that no one was left behind. She had grown stronger in the battle, realizing that leadership was not about standing above her people, but beside them. She inspired them with her courage, and they responded with loyalty and determination. News of the queen's survival and the human protector's courage spread beyond their world. Nearby kingdoms spoke of the city that had withstood an entire fleet. Traders told stories of the towers that glowed with light, of drones that flew like guardians, and of a human who had turned fear into victory. The tale of the queen and her protector became legend across many worlds. Even though peace had returned, Aaron remained vigilant. He knew that enemies could return, and that technology alone could not protect the city without careful planning. He continued to teach, guide, and prepare. The people had learned from him, and they now stood ready to defend their home alongside him. One morning, the queen called a gathering in the central square. She addressed the citizens with pride and warmth. Today, we celebrate not only victory but courage. We have seen what one person can do when they refuse to give in to fear. We have seen what a people can achieve when they stand together. And we have seen that even in the darkest hour, hope can rise. Her voice turned to Aaron. And we honor him, the human who stood firm before me, who gave his skill, his courage, and his heart to protect this kingdom. Let all who hear this tale know that humanity carries strength beyond what is imagined. The people cheered again, louder than before. Aaron stepped forward, humbled by their admiration. He did not seek glory, only to serve and protect. The queen placed her hand over his. You are our protector, Aaron. Not just of this city, but of our hope, our courage, and our future. Your story will be remembered across the stars. Aaron looked out over the crowd, at the people who had once feared for their lives, and now stood smiling, free and strong. He felt a quiet pride, not for himself, but for the city and its people. They had fought together, believed together, and survived together. The night ended with lights across the city glowing softly. The queen returned to her palace, Aaron to his workshops, and the citizens to their homes, hearts full of hope and courage. From that day, the city remained safe, guided by a queen who had learned to stand, and a human who had proven that one person, when firm and unyielding, could change the fate of a kingdom. In every home, every street, and every tower, the story of the human protector was told. Children would grow up dreaming not only of heroes in armor but of courage, wisdom, and the power to stand firm when all else falls away. And so, the legacy of the human engineer who had saved the alien queen and her city endured. His name became a symbol of hope, of courage, and of the strength that humanity could bring even to distant stars. The queen ruled with renewed wisdom, her people united and brave, and a human remained ever vigilant, the protector of the throne. The kingdom had survived the storm, and its people knew they could face whatever the universe might send next, because courage, unity, and trust had been forged stronger than any weapon.